Hey folks, welcome to this episode of Road Hard Restorations. We're going to be tearing the Duster down so we can clean it up, so we can put it back together again, so we can just take it apart again to paint it. Also found a nice little surprise too. Doing here is just kind of scraping out all of this old insulation after taking that old cardboard trunk mat out. Doesn't look too bad in here actually. There's one rust hole right here, so probably have to patch that up a little bit, but the rest of the floor back here looks pretty solid, so that's good news. A lot of the seam sealer here wasn't even really stuck to the floor anymore, so it really wasn't doing any good. See how quickly, easily that's pulling up. You can see it's dirty and rusty looking underneath, which means it wasn't actually stuck to the floor. See, part of being a daily driver is having a trunk that's actually usable, that you're not afraid to put stuff in because it's all nasty. So we're gonna get this nice and cleaned up. You need a stiff putty knife that's kind of sharp on one edge, so that way you can scrape in there. Sometimes if it's too sharp though, you'll be digging into your paint. In this case it doesn't matter, but it'll fight you when you're trying to scrape the rubber and slide across the paint. It'll dig into the paint and you can't push any harder. You don't want it too sharp, you don't want it like a razor blade because it will just bite into the paint and metal or whatever you're working on. So one of the things you want to consider when you're taking a car like this apart, doesn't matter what kind of car it is, when you're pulling the seals off of it, a lot of times they only go in one way. So if you save a piece of it, especially something like this with the trunk weather strip, I usually keep a small piece. You can see what that weather strip looks like. And you can also kind of get an idea of which orientation it goes. Sometimes they're molded non-symmetrical and they only go on one way, but when they come out of the package you can't really tell which way they go. So if you have a piece that came off, I'm going to take a Sharpie and write on here with an arrow and write out, then I know that that side goes out of the trunk. That way when I get the replacement I can put it in the same way. Now this one looks like it actually might be symmetrical, it's just squished from over time on this side here. So that's just a tip. I know the Mustangs are non-symmetrical, so they do have an in and out. You can't put them in the wrong way. So something to be mindful of. See, so I have that side pointing out, so I know which way the weather stripping goes. I can compare it to the replacement. This one looks like it's going to be symmetrical. So if you look, there's a little hole there. We'll have to look at the new one, make sure there's no hole. It's going to be like a vent hole, so when the trunk closes, it has room to squish and doesn't just make an air pocket in there. So that's something to keep an eye on too. I got the first step done in cleaning the trunk. Doesn't look too bad. Come back again through with the wire cup wheel on a grinder motor to really get into all the nooks and crannies, clean it up. Once I'm ready to finish it up, I'll patch the one little rust hole there, remove all the wiring, the filler neck, the trunk divider, and then probably just wind up painting this with Pour 15, covering it up with some carpet, and call it good. It'll be good enough for a daily driver. So I got most of the interior pretty much gutted out. Just kind of check out the floors, get it all cleaned up. They're actually in really good shape for the age of the vehicle. There is a little bit of surface rust in here, but nothing too bad. Nothing that can't get cleaned up with a wire wheel. Then coat of Pour 15, and then carpet. So the only issue is whoever put those seats in there did not reinforce the floor pan, and so it kind of tore the floor there. So then I'll have to weld that up. Carpeting on the back, still got to pull all this out. These are super brittle, so these barely touch it and they fall apart. So I'm going to pull those out. Probably rebuild them from the back side with some fiberglass mat, and then patch them up, clean them up, then they should be serviceable again, put them back in. All right, guys, when I went to go buy the car, the guy that I bought it from told me that it had a 3-speed manual transmission. It's got an automatic column on there. I don't know why somebody switched in an automatic column. When I went to go work the shifter, it was all gummed up. Couldn't shift it into any of the gears. It was just all binding up and nasty and dirty. And so I went under the car to check on the linkage, and there was actually 3 rods, which makes this a 4-speed. So it is an A833 4-speed overdrive. It's an early one. Looked at the casting on the transmission case. It is a 75. It has an early 71, I think, tail shaft casting number on it. So my guess is that this car was at one point converted to an automatic and then converted back to a stick shift. And somebody put in a later model 4-speed with overdrive. Since it is a 75 case, it is a cast iron A833 instead of the more common aluminum ones that you find in the later cars. All right, so here's the Hurst Indy shifter. It says Hurst Competition Plus. It's all just dirty and don't really want to move very freely. So I'm going to go ahead, that's actually not too bad, but I'm going to clean it up anyway. Readjust everything, lubricate it, just get it everything nice and smooth. I don't know if you can see all that. Bunch of crud inside there. Got all the pieces cleaned up, prepped, ready to go. If this was a full-blown restoration, I'd probably send these out to get replated, buy a new rebuild kit. But here everything looks like it's in usable condition. Just needs to be cleaned, re-lubricated, and then reassembled. All right, I got the shifter all rebuilt and back in the car. Got reverse, first, second, third, fourth. Perfect. All right, guys, so I made a list of everything that we need to do to get this car back on the road, but instead of reading it off, let me just go ahead and show it to you. Need to replace the steering column. Need to rebuild the whole instrument cluster. Need to make new door panels. Need to fix the heater controls. Need to install stereo. Need to fix the floor. Need to wire brush and pour 15 the floors. Need to replace these seat belts. Need to make new trim panels. Need to repair these panels. Need to recarpet the floor. Need to repair the rear divider. Need to install a headliner. Need to fix the mirror. I need to put some glass in here. I need to figure out what I'm going to do about these seats. Need to patch a hole in the trunk floor. Need to wire brush and pour 15 the trunk floor. Need to replace that boot. Need to install new weather stripping. Need to replace this filler piece or move the bumper in. Take all that out, repaint everything, put it back in. Probably need to go through, replace a bunch of bushings and ball joints. Need to fix the clutch pedal. Need to fix the rear body panel. I need a trunk latch. Need to replace the ignition switch, the door locks, and get a trunk lock. Fuel hoses, vacuum hoses, more hoses. Battery hold down, fix the grill, clean up the wiring, inspect every inch of wiring, more wiring, more wiring. Oh look, more wiring. Need to replace the shackles, antenna, door latches. Sand the whole car down, do the body work, and paint it. Hey folks, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. On the next episode, we're going to try to get this pile running and drive.